Welcome to the MSP Xperience Game Changers, innovative thinkers in the MSP space. This is a limited edition series presented by Axcient, your trusted partner for comprehensive BCDR solutions for MSPs. I am your host, Robert Cioffi, CTO and co-founder of Progressive Computing, a New York-based MSP that I co-founded in 1993. So what is Game Changers? Simply put, Game Changers is a video series designed to bring some of the most innovative thinkers in the MSP space into a one-on-one conversation with another MSP leader. Our topics are carefully cultivated to push the envelope for MSPs, to discuss real-world problems we're facing, and to hear from industry experts on how to overcome these challenges in interesting and innovative ways. And today's episode is Your Number One Asset is You. And our special guest is Dawn Sizer of Third Element Consulting. Dawn, thank you for joining us. I'm already goofing up. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show. Can you give a quick introduction for yourself?
Yeah, sure. So thanks so much for having me. I don't know if I'm introducing myself or my company, so let's do a little bit of both,
Yeah.
right? Third Element, we are a South Central based MSP. We also have offices in Houston, and we're bringing up one out near Atlanta right now. So we are growing like mad, which is fantastic. We are 15 people strong, and like I said, growing like mad. And as far as me, I'm boring. There's not much to tell, but I have an MBA. So I have a little bit of a business background. I have an engineering background as well. I actually went to college for naval architectural engineering, and then I got into the computer side of things when, you're trying to put your homework in and everything's broken
Yeah.
because of the college that I went to, right? Like every time I needed the plotter to get a drawing done, it was always broken. So I learned how to fix things, and that's how I actually ended up in the IT realm. But
Nice.
I've been a network engineer for a number of years before I stepped into CEO shoes.
All right. Well, next conference, you and I are going to geek out and talk real tech about how to fix plotters and overcome engineering problems. I love this. Tell us how you got started in this business. What were some of those early things that you did to promote yourself and your company?
Oh my gosh. I think when we first got started, I literally rage quit my job from a previous employer. I literally like one day I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. Literally wrote out a one sentence, I'm done, I'm out kind of thing, plopped it on his desk and left,
Wow.
and started this company the next day. So that gives you a little bit of like, I had no plan, there was nothing going on. Like, what do you do in
Yeah.
that particular situation? So we ended up being a subsidiary of a physical security group. So
Mm.
we started out as the IT section of a physical security group. So when you're coming to the table with facilities management, you're coming to the table with security, and you're coming to the table with IT, you become the third element in a lot of conversations.
Ah,
And that's how we got started.
Third Element Consulting. Now, that answered a question I had in my mind about, where did the name come from? But thanks for that.
Yeah, so that conversation gets going, and when you're bringing in actual IT people into a physical security scenario, right? They're realizing that not only can you run their access control systems, but you can run some other things too. So I think there's a really good way to brand yourself is not being pigeonholed into certain things
Hmm.
and being able to say, you know what, we understand technology in a way that traverses a lot of different things. How can we best help your business do what it needs to do?
Well, Dawn, it's very clear to me that I made the right choice in bringing you on here because you're an engineer, a techno geek at heart. It sounds like between your experience and your background, your education, and some of those things. But you're very articulate in how you present and speak, and I think that's a really key asset in the way we go to market to our customers and the way we interact with people. So can you expand on this a little bit more for me? Like, how did you either discover those skills or hone those skills as in those early days of learning how to distinguish yourself, and by yourself, by extension, your company from the competition?
So let's make sure that we're all level setting, right? This doesn't happen overnight. And I still get those horrible, but not the good butterflies, the bad butterflies. The bad
Mm.
butterflies where you're like, I'm just going to go over here and die for a minute. Um, before you get up on stage, right? So that part of the anxiety and the craziness that comes along with some of this, especially if this is not something that you are naturally born to, is still there. It doesn't go away. And I still have a little bit of imposter syndrome and some other
Yeah.
things that come along with all of this. So I think that's a really nice level set to say, some people are just born to this and it is not me, right? So ask that question again now that we have level set where we're at, and let's make sure that we're all on the same playing field.
No, I really appreciate your humility there, and I think that unto itself is just awesome advice for everybody because I meet so many other MSPs, owners, leaders, and even other influential people within the organizations, and they just feel like what you said, that imposter syndrome, or I can't do this. And the reality is
Well,
that
you can.
yeah,
It might be uncomfortable, right?
yes,
It's gonna be really uncomfortable. In fact, it's so funny. So we all wear these cool little watches, right? And
hmm
mine tells me that I'm literally having a heart attack when I'm up on stage. So not only that, but like the come down from the stress after the fact, it's actually pretty stressful, and you see the stress slide off of that
yeah,
too. So like I said, it is I think there's a little bit of a level set and understanding that it happens to everybody, especially when you're first getting started. Don't be surprised.
mm,
And once you do it a couple times, then you're like, yeah, they're just your friends out there. You're just talking to your friends. And if you can
all
get
it is.
past that point, you'll be just fine. And because you are talking to your peers and like no one's thinking, "Oh, they're gonna screw up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say." Your friends are out there, they're there to support you. They do wanna hear what you have to say,
Yes.
and they're actually gonna ask you really good questions to make everybody think, and it's actually a really good spot. So, if you've thought about it, think about it a little bit more and give it a shot.
Right. So this isn't all just like kind of fluff, like getting in front of a group of people. And I think, by the way, it's great practice when we do it in front of peers because we're
Yeah.
speaking the same language and we're a little bit more comfortable with each other. But, I'm thinking of, how we go to market for our businesses and our local communities. So did you find that speaking with peers was sort of a way to kind of I don't know, test your mettle, so to speak, before you
Uh,
get in front of business groups?
so peers are it's easier and harder all at the same time, right? There are some parts that are super easy because you're all speaking the same language. That's the
Mhm.
easy part,
Yeah,
right? The hard part is making sure that not only are you speaking the same language, but it's something that one is truly interesting and one that you're interested in too. Because if you're not all learning, it's gonna get old really, really fast.
yeah,
So, taking that and then translating it into things that you would do on a business level, business to business, especially in your local community or, on whatever stage that you're on, is a little bit harder because you're not speaking exactly the same language. So, you have to take, the topics that let me slide over here so you can see my hands because I talk with my hands a lot. Um, bring
Sizer, I didn't know Sizer was Italian because that's
I
me.
know, right?
I'm always talking with my hands. I knew I had to.
Yeah. But bringing it down those multiple notches, sometimes down to that eighth grade level, so that everybody has a really good understanding of what it is you're talking about
Mhm.
in simple terms that they can relate to. And it's not just simple terms, it's simple terms that they can relate to. So you're having to take something into a story format that's very relatable into their industry or business or background, and then telling that story appropriately so that they can follow it very easily and then come out as that hero at the end. And they're the hero because they've used your service, right? In some
Right.
way, shape, or form. So you want to make sure that you're telling this amazing little story where the people in front of you, your client, your potential clients, are becoming a hero in this story. And it's all becoming their idea at the end. So
So it's very interesting, the way you kind of put some of that stuff. And I realize that storytelling and making things relatable comes a little bit more naturally for others, harder, for the other half. But do you have any sort of like tips or anything around storyteller or breaking things down that would be helpful for someone who's really feeling like massive butterflies before they get on stage?
yeah, I mean, it all depends on your audience, right? If you know who your audience is going to be, you can pick a topic that's pretty
Right.
easy. Like, If it's going to be a whole bunch of guys and they're in a certain demographic and certain age group, that kind of thing, cars, you can always relate things back to cars.
Mm.
These are the things that you like. Sometimes it's sports ball. You if you if you see me up on
He must
stage,
not work Spencer. He always calls it. Yeah,
sports ball.
yeah,
It's just a matter of, is it tall people sports ball? Is it bat sports ball? Is it dimpled little ball sports ball? Whatever that particular sports ball is,
okay,
you can relate it back to sports. If it's women, then you relate it to things that are appropriate for that group, right? So I think it's just a matter of like, know your audience, know who you're talking to, and if
right.
it's business owners, be humble. You own a business. You could talk about business all day long,
Yes. We,
right?
we we forget that, I think, sometimes as MSPs, we think that we're just doing tech, right? But we're
But we're
actually,
not.
we got payroll, we have HR, like we have retention and recruitment issues. Like you're a business person too, right, Dawn?
Yeah, most days.
Right? Most days. Well, there are some days that you're not. I mean,
Some
well,
days I just want to be, on a beach, margarita cart, that kind
yeah,
of thing. Like,
I hear that one loud and clear. Working on that plan,
yeah,
trying to get out
exactly.
there
Aren't we
more and
all?
more and more. Yeah. So you spoke about like some of the, it's a very interesting topic for me because I experienced a lot of what you experienced. In fact, if I go back to my pre-MSP days, which I've been in business 31 years now, but I worked for General Electric, GE Capital, in fact, back in the early 90s. And I remember taking a communication course where I completely like did the worst presentation just to start. By the end of the course, I was voted the best presentation out of like 30 of us. But I remember the failure way more than I remember the success because I had all of the anxiety. I was sweating. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
Words were jumbled. I couldn't think straight. My body was shaking. I was awful, right? And I know a lot of people kind of get that stage fright. So are there some tips that you could offer about sort of like calming yourself down or being able to overcome those physical manifestations of nervousness?
I still get some of those. So it's not, I don't know that there are really truly good ways to get past it. There are little things that you can do in your mind that can turn them off, I think, to a certain extent.
Right.
One of and I know you've heard me do this because you've seen me on stage a couple of times, but one of the first things that I do when I get up on stage is I look out, I find a couple of people that I know personally,
Yes.
and the first thing I do is say, "Hey, friends, it's good to see you again," right? And
Right.
it's that reminder in my head that these are my friends out there, and even if it's just one person in that audience that you know or kinda know,
Yeah.
sort of, whatever, find those people and then find 3 people in the different, like, thirds of the audience that you can keep watching as you're, talking to the audience, right? And I think that helps too, because once you're talking and moving around a little bit and starting to feel more natural and focusing on that one person and that one person directly in front of you and that one person to your left or right, depending on how this looks to you,
Mhm.
um, that tends to make things a little less anxious, a little less anxiety inducing, at least for me. Hopefully it
Right.
does for everybody else too, but that's how I do it.
I've done similar things where I'll like exactly like you said, pick a friend, right? For me, I've noticed like I've watched recordings of myself and say, why aren't why do I look so dour, right? I've tried to like remember, well, smile a little bit, right? Like laugh a little bit. That's also helped me breathing, right? Just regulating my breathing sometimes just helps me kind of calm down. But I love that suggestion about just, getting on stage and just open up with that hello, friends, and looking at people, right? Brings sort of a little peace to know that you have got some allies out in the audience. So that's
I mean,
awesome
there's
advice.
the power of the pause is also a good one,
Yeah.
right? And it's that delivering a line and pausing, and you watch the people in the audience and see how they're actually reacting to things that you're saying and doing. And as long as they're reacting well, you can keep on keeping on. If you're maybe not getting so good, maybe you should switch up some things just a little bit, or your energy level, or maybe you've got the face. Because I have the face at times where I look angry. I'm not angry, I swear.
It's that Northeast thing. You're from
It is.
PA, right? You're
It's
from
the face.
Pennsylvania. I'm from New
Yeah,
York. I
yeah.
get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a phase. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, mm. Um,
That one, that is it.
yeah, that one. That dour face. Like, why are you so upset, Robert? Like, smile a little bit. No, I totally get that. And I think you're 100% right. It's just trying to find that inner peace, just trying to connect with the audience. Let's move past, I guess, some of that sort of stage presence stuff. And I want to talk about how let's like bring these type of skills now into the marketplace. You've established the business, you've established the name Third Element Consulting. You're starting to make a name for yourself. Have you integrated yourself in local business communities, joined any, participated, and what types of groups have you found that are more successful than others? And even if you have a story or two to tell us.
I mean, I've been in Rotary for a while. I had to step back actually. Just we got a little bit too busy, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it very as often as I would like to. I was actually,
Happens. Yeah,
president of the group and the whole night. Yeah, I feel terrible, but like it
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah.
So, doing a lot of speaking from that aspect, from local community types of things, even just the chamber businesses, that kind of stuff. I think there's plenty of speaking to be done there. There's plenty of um, even branding pieces, right? Just because you're going out to speak doesn't mean you have to talk about your business. You can talk about all kinds of different things,
Yes.
right? So again, it's the I don't know about the rest of you, but anytime that, a vendor comes out to talk to you, right? And if they're going to talk about their product, that's totally fine. But if they're going to tell me something about my business and how to make things better in my world that isn't just completely centric around their product, I
Hmm.
listen. I listen more than
Right.
I
Okay.
than I would have just about their product. So again, we're all business owners. So if you come out and talk specifically about, you know what, hey, I had this problem in my particular business, and I'm betting some of you do too. Here's how we fixed it. And if we can do this, you can do this. Oh, and by the way, this is what we actually do.
Right. Dawn, I love that. It's you're looking for examples of things that resonated with you,
Right.
right? Or even if and if I may extend that by saying, even if I observe somebody else being very effective in their delivery or how they're just speaking, and it doesn't have to be in front of hundreds or even
No,
dozens. It could even be in small group, like, hey, there's like two or three people clustered here, and there's like this one woman, she's just captivated she's got everybody like leaning into everything that she's saying. I try to look for those cues or those little things that she may be doing that I say I can imitate that. So I assume you as well have looked for those types of things to replicate, it sounds like.
you do. And I think everybody sees somebody that does some amazing stuff, right? The power of the pause is something I've learned from, I don't know, any number of different people. And it works really well, not
Yeah.
only to ramp the anxiety down, but to really, focus in on the other people that are listening. But there are other things too. Some of it is motion as you're doing whatever you're doing, right? Because
Mhm.
just standing there, like a statue doesn't do anybody any good. So
Right.
it's the subtle motions of specific things and the way delivery happens from some people. The telling of a story. I actually got this from one of the marketing groups that we worked with, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Annie. They use story branding and
Uh-huh.
the way that they lead you through this whole storytelling scenario is phenomenal. So I took that from them and crafted that into a lot of what I do now, and it just works.
That's amazing. I've had a taste of that as well, and not here to promote any specific third party here, but yeah, I mean it's definitely something to look at, the story
Yeah.
branding, because I think it's I think we all need to just be in this continuous learning and sort of, I call it sponge mode, right? Just keep soaking things up and use what you can. And by the way, I you mentioned the pause, right? Using that pause effectively. That was a problem that I had personally because, and I know this is going to sound crazy. What, Robert can't shut up? Well, Robert can't shut up. I love to talk, and sometimes I talk too much. And so I had to recognize that and say, I need to use pauses to get my point across. Very difficult for me to do that. So for others, I think you get to a point of self-realization of what your issues are. I'm stuttering too much. I say too much. I talk too much. Like, just do that self-reflection and you can keep reiterating and improving. So I heard a little bit of that in some of what you said as well.
100%. The other thing, this is going to sound completely ridiculous. When I'm practicing a deck, right?
Yep.
Because like you and I both know as MSPs, if we're educating other MSPs, we might have 10, 15 decks that we have to learn through the year when vendors have like one. It's so unfair.
Yeah.
But I bought actually like a gimbal for my phone
Oh,
and I started recording myself, and my dogs are amazing. They will listen to anything,
uh-huh.
which I'm not sure this is good or bad, but
I'm
I will
taking notes.
I will literally sit there and practice with the dogs because 'cause they're like, "Hmm, you said something," like, the intonation, they'll notice a difference, and, like,
Oh,
the little heads will tilt on the intonation and things like that, so I'll know when I'm making, good moves and bad moves depending on what the dogs are doing, which is kinda silly, but any audience that you can get like that, you'll also hear if you're recording on your phone from the little gimbal doohickey
yep.
that you can sit wherever. It will, depending on the one you get, it'll follow you. So if you feel it's natural to move around, you can do that. It'll still record what you're doing. And that way, if you have the problems with the ums or you're not pausing, or you feel like you have to talk a mile a minute because you actually are from New York and it's totally fine to use your hands, uh, you'll
Or
see that
or
too.
or speak like a speeding subway train. Yes, I
Exactly.
know. Yeah.
Exactly. So if there are things that you're trying to avoid or tone down, you can do that. But it actually does take recording yourself. Not only that, but you're going to have to practice some of that stuff anyway, especially if you're working with a deck. So
So all of this that we're talking about and the way you present yourself, your intonations, the words that you use, your styles, things like that, mimicking others, dealing with nervousness. In my mind, all of this, really kind of culminates to how the world views the dawns of our society, right? Like Dawn Sizer, like what the impression that we have of you, not just in the MSP community, but within your business community, I think is their elevated view of you is because of all these things that you do, right? And so for me, that's your personal brand. So how much of your brand as being Dawn, right, is intertwined with Third Element's branding, right? Like you want to get people to buy and transact and have a relationship with Element Consulting, but how much of that do you think is tied to Dawn, and how do they play off each other?
honestly, I have no idea. I wish I knew that there was some cool magic formula to
Yeah,
all of this.
that's fine.
I want to believe that there is. I can tell you from some of the things that I've done, a lot of people will, hey, I really want to learn more about some of the things that you've talked about. Can I schedule some time with you? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and do that. When you're out in the public realm, in the business world, that kind of things, when you're not dealing with the MSPA groups, same type of thing. Hey, there are some questions that I have. Can I schedule some time? Absolutely. Let's do that. Sometimes it leads to a client. Sometimes it leads to definitely not having a client.
yeah,
So gotta figure that one out too. But there are plenty of things that are super easy to do, down to like simple lunch and learns, right? You don't have to talk all that much,
yeah.
but you can get a point across. You can have some folks in. You can have real human interaction, really good conversation that's not oration, which is something that's different.
Right. Dawn, you made me think of something that was somebody told me a long time ago about as I was trying to understand why do people transact with us, right? Like, why do people become clients of ours? And someone said to me, and I know the listening audience will probably say, "Yeah, of course, Robert. Like, we've heard this before." But I think sometimes in the basic truths of life, there is such simplicity and yet beauty in there. People do business with other people that they know, they like, and they trust. And I
Mhm.
think from what I'm hearing from you is the ways to do that are by just getting out there, be yourself, put yourself out there, speak, tell a story, relate to them, and all the other great tips that you've shared. Do you think that that's probably the key to success for an MSP to get out there and build their business?
Yeah, go be real. Go be who you are.
Right. Don't try to be somebody else is
Don't
what
try to be somebody else. Don't try to replicate what somebody else is doing. It's great to pull some pieces in. There's nothing wrong with that. But go be you, go be human, and go relate to someone, because you're going to do business with people that do things the way that you do them. And, that gets into a whole separate conversation, like how do you vet somebody and what does that look like, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's true. You do business with people that you like and
Yeah, totally.
form a
I,
relationship with.
I agree. And, and what it's interesting that I hear a lot of positive comments from my business community of things that I've done. And it kind of gets back to your answer before when you said, Robert, I actually have no idea. But people have said to me like, wow, you've done such a great job making a name for yourself in Westchester County.
And you're like,
And I'm like,
okay.
like, when did that happen? Right. Like nobody told me. And I think it's because of exactly what you said, sort of a revelation or a re-revelation for me, or a reconfirmation of things that I've heard, is that I just put myself out there, good, bad, ugly, otherwise, and just being me. Like I tried to stop trying so hard and try to just bring genuine value to conversations, presentations, whatever. Do you agree there, Dawn?
100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head exactly, that bringing the genuine thing to it. Like it has to be genuine. If it's not genuine, it's not going to work. So just go be you, be genuine, be human, and be who you are.
Love that. Love that, Dawn. Hey, listen, we're almost out of time, but I want to squeeze one little thing in there because, we talk about like in-person kind of events. We've talked a bit about interacting with each other at our, and within our industry circles, but also business networking. There's sort of this third element to, or third venue, which is social media. And, my preference is LinkedIn for business branding. I mean, do you do any kind of social stuff online? And do you have maybe one or two tips there of things that you might have done?
So I've participated in something called Off 66, which is 66 days of authentic video production,
Oh, I remember
essentially
that.
on
A lot of friends doing that. Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And I'm just about ready to start a new series, which is going to focus specifically on. So one of my sons has autism,
Mhm.
and it's taking some of that into how you do things within your business to make sure that you can support DEI initiatives and things along those lines. So we're going to relate it back to that. But that is a phenomenal place to actually start with
Mhm.
small snippets, 2, 3 minutes. Doesn't have to be anything major. And again, it's just being your authentic self and talking about something that means something to you.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dawn. I wish we had more time to do this, but I know that you and I are going to connect in person and geek out over engineering stuff and presentation things. So, but unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our discussion on your number one asset is you. Dawn, thank you again for joining me today and helping lift our industry by sharing your wisdom and experience. Dawn, just quickly, how can people reach or find you?
So, two things. One, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Two, LinkedIn is probably the best place to do it. But other than that, you can find me at drsizer@thirdelement.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everyone for tuning into our series, Game Changers, Innovative Thinkers in the MSP Space, graciously sponsored and presented by Axcient. If you would like to learn more about their awesome BCDR products, you can contact sales or sign up for a free trial right on their website, www.axcient.com. Just let them know that Robert sent you. Until next time, live long and prosper.